Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us. Good to talk to you again, as always. And first off, I just want to ask, you're taking a lot of fire right now, obviously. How are you feeling? How are you holding up?
I think very well. We're doing very well in the polls. We just had a poll 69 to 22, and with me at 69. And we're doing very well. We're way up in the polls from even 2 or 3 weeks ago where we were leading. But now we're really leading. And I think that our primary opponent, who will be the opponent, I guess, someday, even though I got him elected. But my primary opponent is sort of crashing. He said a lot of things that people don't like, including some votes that he took against Social Security and Medicare, which never helps in the polls.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about DeSantis. We're going to talk about your polls here in just a second. I want to start off, though. I want to talk about the legal issues happening right now. You indicated that you might be indicted this past Tuesday, but after the New York grand jury heard from Robert Costello on Monday, it does appear that Alvin Bragg's very weak and bizarre case has collapsed at this point. At least that's what a lot of people are speculating. What are you hearing now? What are your attorneys hearing?
Well, that's what I'm hearing. And the fact is, I did nothing wrong at all. Nothing at all. And, I'm hearing the same thing. And Robert went in, who I don't really know other than he's a highly respected lawyer, very, very respected. And he went in, he was in there for a few hours. And he was, I guess Cohn was a client of his, and he said this was all just the opposite. And then on top of it, he had another lawyer write a letter to the FEC, and that letter was devastating for him. I mean, everything he said was a lie. He should be indicted for lying. No, I think we're doing very well, and we did nothing wrong. They have absolutely no evidence, but it's not even a question of evidence. We did nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing. There's no misdemeanor. There was no anything. Everything that we did was 100% right. What he did,
they do say,
right. He's a convicted liar. He's a convicted felon, and they're using him. He's their only source, and they're using him. So I think it's a very, very bad thing for the country, too, to have a thing like this happen with essentially a local prosecutor. It's very, very bad for the country.
It's a bad case. It's a very weak star witness, as you said. But as they always say, you can indict a ham sandwich. If they actually do indict, the big talker, one of the big talkers this week was that you expected that you might be actually handcuffed and perp walked, that perhaps you wanted that to happen because it would send a message. Is any of that true?
No, none of that's true. I don't see it happening. I just don't know how you can indict somebody when they have no case, and they know they have no case. And, this was supposed to happen a week ago, and a lot of this proof and evidence showed up over the last few days. The attorney went out, and he went to visit the grand jury. He was there for a long time explaining the facts. And this was, again, a very highly respected man who worked for Cohn. He said, no, it's just the opposite. And then on top of it, you had, which may have been even a bigger fact, you have a letter that talks about this whole thing in exactly the opposite way, and which really showed that Cohn was lying. He was lying badly, but he's known for that. He's sort of a con man. And again, he was a lawyer who represented other people, and he's supposed to have a certain allegiance to a client. Nowadays that doesn't mean so much with all of these prosecutors out there. They're just looking to make a name for themselves.
Right.
But it's very, very bad for the country. But no, we did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. Nothing at all wrong. Not even a little bit wrong. So let's see what happens. But I think it's a very bad thing for the country.
Yeah, understood. I want to ask, the breaking news today was in the January 6th, the special counsel probe, which is also looking into classified documents. You had this judge today rejecting claims of executive privilege, meaning that Mark Meadows and your aides are going to have to testify on J6. Your response to that, and are you going to appeal that ruling?
Well, usually when I hear this, I say, why do we even bother appealing? Because, first of all, the courts are such that we don't do too well in them in terms of rulings. They seem to be very much on the other side. Second of all, let them say what they want to say. We did nothing wrong at all. Mark Meadows did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. I'm president of the United States. I made beautiful statements. If you look at my statements, I wish you could read them off to your viewers, which, by the way, I see you're doing very well, so I'm proud of you, Rob. But I wish you could read them off to your viewers. But I called for peace. I called for all of these different things on numerous occasions during that few-hour period. And the problem was Nancy Pelosi, who's in charge of security, along with the mayor of D.C., and actually along with Mitch McConnell just came out with, they didn't do their job because they could have had soldiers, they could have had National Guard, they could have had a lot of protection, and they didn't want it. They turned it down. They're the ones. They didn't do their job. But if you look at the statements I made, they were beautiful statements.
Well, I mean, it is clear. There's no doubt that January 6th has been very politically beneficial to people like Nancy Pelosi. There's no doubt about that. Your former attorney, Evan Corcoran, testified this morning without attorney-client privilege. You did not appeal that. I guess I can understand why. Any concern there? Is there any worry in that case for you?
No, there's no worry. I did nothing wrong, and there's no worry with that. I will say this, they're making attorneys of this whole thing and almost everything else. You know, I always used to think that attorneys really had a very high status in life, that when you had an attorney, the attorneys can't be subpoenaed, they can't be summoned to talk, et cetera, et cetera. But attorneys and attorney privilege doesn't mean anything anymore. I've never seen anything like it. You know, they bring attorneys in as though they're witnesses to a case. It wasn't supposed to be that way, and I'm sure it's not supposed to be. But I don't mind if people testify, because if they testify truthfully, they'll see I did nothing wrong. If you look at my statements and the statements that I've made during that day and during other times, they were peaceful statements, actually peaceful and patriotic statements.
And And Corcoran on the documents case, the Mar-a-Lago documents case as well. I just want to ask, amid all of this harassment, and it's almost all political at this point, your poll numbers are going up, which is what I think a lot of people thought would happen. A recent McLaughlin poll showing you 30 points ahead of DeSantis in a theoretical 2024 GOP primary. In 2024 rematch, you are up, leading Biden by 4 points in another poll. Biden's approval rating at 38%, new Associated Press poll, lowest of his presidency. The president's got a lot of failures. Which one is hurting him the most right now, in your opinion?
I think everything. I don't think there's anything that he's doing well on. You know, people have asked me, which is the worst aspect of the Biden? Everything. The economy is no good. Inflation's no good. The border's no good. The military, he's made it woke and made it weak. Afghanistan was the most embarrassing day or period in the history of our country. Every single thing. We were energy independent. Now we're begging Venezuela and other countries for energy. Can you imagine Venezuela? We're begging Venezuela for energy. No, there's not one thing that he's done that turned out well. The war is a disaster. It would have never happened if I was president. You know, if you look at the war with Russia going into Ukraine, that would never have happened, Rob, if I were president. If I were president, that was unthinkable. Putin knew you cannot do that. And by the way, President Xi knew you cannot go into Taiwan also. Right. And it would have never happened. Now, that hasn't happened yet, but it certainly looks like it's going to. I thought one of the most embarrassing things to happen to our country, other than Afghanistan, which will be one for hopefully a long period of time as opposed to something else taking its place. But I thought the scene in Moscow yesterday where Putin and Xi are talking, and they're talking about how there's a big reset like there hasn't been in 100 years. I thought that was an incredible statement. Got very little press because the news is fake, but it was a terrible, terrible statement when they were talking together on a hot mic. We have a lot of issues now. We've got this new Iran issue the last couple of days. We've got Russia and China buddying up very closely. On the international stage, we look very, very bad. We have a very bad State Department. I think you understand that. Ron DeSantis told. Go ahead. To think that Russia and just think of this: Russia and China and Iran have now gotten together and formed an alliance. That would be impossible. You know, Russia and China are, by nature, it's very hard for them to get together. We have forced them together because of really stupid energy policy. But we forced them together. So now they have a relationship. And now you add Iran. And now you can add Saudi Arabia, too, because Saudi Arabia worked out an alliance between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So don't think of it. China worked out this alliance, not the United States. So China works out an alliance between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So China's sort of taken over the Middle East, and nobody even knew what was happening. This all happened on the Biden watch. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
We've lost so much stature in the world.
Robert, very importantly, to think that Russia, just think of this, and China are now together. They're a formed unit. But they've also added Iran in there, and they've added North Korea, and they've added others, too.
Right.
It's incredible. And this has all happened over the last period of a year and a half.
Let me ask you this. I want to get back to domestic politics. I want to ask you about Ron DeSantis. He told Eric Bolling last night that he thinks the New York Alvin Bragg probe is a political stunt by George Soros. He also said he would not consider being your vice president in 2024. I want to ask, was that ever an option for you?
No, I never thought of it. I think that we have a lot of great people in the Republican Party. I never thought of it. But, some people every once in a while mention it, but that's about it. No, I think that would be a very unlikely alliance. But, look, I appointed him. He was failing badly in the polls. He was out of politics. He was going to be out of politics, and I endorsed him. And he went from a very small number to a very high number, and he beat the person who happened to be leading, the Secretary of Agriculture. His name was Adam Putnam. And he went out and he beat him only because of my endorsement. Then I got him passed in the general election, somebody that was the star of the Democrats. He turned out to be a crackhead, later on, but they didn't know that at the time. And I had rallies for Ron, and we got him in. And then he, about a couple of years later, they said, will you run against the president for president? He said, I have no comment. I said, that's not supposed to happen, but that's okay, whatever he wants to do. If you look at his record, he can't win because he voted against Social Security. He voted against everything. I mean, he voted against things that are so important. Medicare, he voted against Medicare. He wanted to raise the age substantially for people getting Social Security. The things that he's voted against are devastating because people don't know this about Ron. Ron was a disciple of Paul Ryan. And Paul Ryan was a loser. You know that. He was a loser in many ways. But he was a guy that, he couldn't get in Wisconsin. He couldn't get elected dog catcher right now. But he was a disciple of Paul Ryan. And that means, that's a bad person. That's a bad person to be a disciple of.
Well, the infighting has begun. It's kind of tough to watch, I think, for a lot of viewers because I think a lot of people love you both and support you both. But that's politics as we move into primary season here. I want to ask you.
Well, you have to get the word out, though, Rob. And I don't like saying this about another Republican, but you have to. Everyone thought he did great on COVID, but if you look at the list, he did poorly on COVID. He was in the same numbers as New York, a little bit worse than New York. He's bad on education, bad on COVID, bad on many different things that people don't know about. So, as somebody that I feel I'm running against him, even though he hasn't announced, even that, he's supposed to have announced. He's running for president, but he doesn't want to announce.
Yep.
And, I just assume he's running, and so therefore I attack. But I'm not looking to attack Republicans. I had almost 99% when I endorsed a candidate, almost 99% they won in the party, a Republican candidate.
Right.
Almost 99% of the time they got the nomination. And, the thing that people don't ever talk about is on the midterms, they try and be critical. But when I was endorsing people, we were 233 and 20. 233 wins. Think of that. And 20. And nobody wants it. They keep saying about Herschel Walker, a good guy, by the way, but they don't talk about Ted Budd. They don't talk about J.D. Vance.
Right.
They don't talk about all of these tremendous victories I had.
Right.
But, even in the midterms, I did fantastically. I think the party was disappointing, but that's not me. I was, I can only do what I can do. But if you think about out of 253, I was 233. That's pretty amazing.
It's good numbers. It certainly is good numbers. I want to ask you one final question about this rally tomorrow in Waco, Texas. You're holding a massive rally. It's going to be televised here on Newsmax, of course. Next month marks 30 years, though, since that deadly government siege of the Branch Davidian compound there. We've got the mainstream media right now accusing you of, quote, stoking the fires of Waco with this visit and with that location. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and what people can expect from the rally tomorrow.
Well, I hear there's tens of thousands of people. We're going to have, many, many tens of thousands. The line is already miles long trying to get in. And I don't leave until tomorrow late afternoon. And we're going to have a great time in Waco. We're going to have a great time in Texas. I won Texas by a lot 2 times, as you know. And we have tremendous support in Texas. We have a lot of the congressmen are coming. A lot of the great people in politics are coming. And most importantly, the people of Texas are going. It's going to be a very big rally. We're just now starting our rallies because people love the rallies. And we're just now starting the rallies. And this will be about the first one that we've done. We've done interior things, but this is the first major rally, and I think they're bigger than ever before. I really see it. The number of tickets that are gone I think it's unprecedented. I think it's the biggest we've had. And, we've had 100,000 people at rallies, but I think this is probably the biggest one we've had in terms of a little bit before. And don't forget, we only talked about this a couple of days ago. So, and the reason is, yes, maybe they like me, but you know what they don't like? They don't like what's happening to their country with the open borders and the military that's not taken care of properly, and the regulations which are killing every company, and they're just killing them.
Right.
Think of it from Texas standpoint. We were energy independent. We were going to be energy dominant, and now we go to Venezuela to help us with oil. It's amazing. And we cut taxes and the border. The border, of course, the border.
Yeah.
How can you forget? We had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history, probably for any country anywhere in the world. I don't believe it's just in this country. There's never been a border like this anywhere in the world at any time.